So it's been about 17 hours since the Miami Heat officially drafted Kasparas Jakucionis, and I've finally learned how to pronounce his name. So are you happy now, everybody watching this video? Because y'all got on me yesterday in the comments for my pronunciation, and rightfully so, because I definitely butchered it. Not as bad as I did last year, where after the Heat drafted Pallel Larson, I kept calling him Pallel Ware. But that's because I was mixing up like Khalil Ware and Pallel Larson, even though it's Khalil Ware and not Khalil. Anyways, that wasn't one of my finest moments. But it's been 17 hours since the Heat took Kasparas Jakucionis, and he is still on the roster. And I don't think that's going to change. Leading up to the draft, of course, there was a lot of talk about the Heat potentially moving the pick. I wouldn't have been against it. They need to gather as many assets as possible, and it's definitely likely that another team was highly interested in Kasparas. But that being said, the Heat clearly were as well. So they probably would have considered, or at least more strongly considered, moving the pick if Kasparas didn't fall to them. But of course, the Heat are still looking to make moves. The main guys we hear about is trading Andrew Wiggins, maybe dumping him to the Lakers for some assets. I kind of like that idea, and we'll get videos about that later this offseason, maybe tomorrow or the next day. Of course, the Jonathan Kuminga stuff is still out there too. But tonight, we still got the second round of the draft. And low-key, I would kind of like to see if the Heat could get involved. Of course, they don't have a pick as of right now, but maybe they could buy one. They could trade for one. I'm not exactly sure what the value is. It depends how early in the second round you want to get. Because, of course, right now, the guy that all Heat fans, including myself, would like to get in on is Rasheer Fleming, who was actually second on my probable big board, guys that will still be there around 20. And shockingly, he did not go in the first round. So I'd love to see if the Heat could get their hands on him. There's some other guys too, like Maxime Reynaud could be a good backup center. So I'll be watching the second round tonight. We'll see if the Heat can make a move there. But in today's video, I want to focus more on Kasparas. Yesterday was my... What's going on, y'all? It's me, Ant, and I'm just here to remind y'all to subscribe because it helps me out a lot. Thank you. But today, I want to discuss more of his background, as well as more on-court fit talk. And let's talk about the reaction from the fans and the media, and we'll hear from Kasparas himself. I did find it pretty interesting that Kasparas was born in Lithuania in 2006, which, Lord, that makes me feel old. The kid was born in 2006 and he's already 19 years old. Now, he just turned 19 in May, so a couple months ago, which is good. It means that he'll be 19 basically his entire rookie season. So very young and full of potential in terms of, a prospect. But the cool part is, and actually the very a part that makes me very optimistic, is he started playing basketball professionally a few years ago. He played for Barcelona back in 2022, which means that he was a pro at 16 or 17 years old, which means that he has a ton of experience, and that's always a very, very good thing. And keep in mind, he wasn't playing some low-level basketball. He was literally 16 or 17 years old playing for Barcelona in the EuroLeague, which is the second most competitive league in the entire world behind the NBA. Now, if you look at his stats here, obviously he didn't play too much, only played a handful of games in EuroLeague and Liga. But I want to point out how absolutely stacked his roster was. Look at some of the NBA talent on this roster that I recognized. You had guys like Alex Abrinas, Willy Hernan Gomez, Jabari Parker, of course, former second overall pick, Jan Vesely, Thomas Satoransky. And then the guy that really caught my eye was Ricky Rubio. Of course, everybody knows Ricky Rubio had quite a long NBA career, relatively successful one, albeit he was taken before Steph Curry, and the Timberwolves will regret that forever. But he was still a damn good NBA player. And you talk about true facilitators, that's what Ricky Rubio was. And always came across as just a super nice and humble guy too. So I think he is a fantastic mentor for Kasparas to have. I'm kind of making an assumption on how close those guys were, but they were on the same team, for a couple of seasons actually, through a couple of different leagues. So it is nice to know at the very least Kasparas saw Rubio train, he saw him play. And I'm sure that they spoke quite a bit, and he's just an excellent resource for him to have. Because, if Kasparas can turn into a better scoring Ricky Rubio, you're talking about a home run prospect. But of course, after Kasparas played a couple of seasons with Barcelona, he decided that his next best step to continue his career would be to play college in the United States. We've seen that transition from several other prospects. Igor Demon is the one that you hear about a lot because obviously Igor, I think, ended up going 9. So coming over to the States, playing for BYU was the right decision for him. Some guys don't prefer that. Some guys prefer to stay overseas, like Hugo Gonzalez, I think was on Real Madrid. He didn't get as much exposure, as much playing time either because he was playing behind a stacked roster for Real Madrid. So a lot of times these overseas prospects, although they like it, playing in their country, well, playing at least in EuroLeague and in the same continent, I suppose. Barcelona is in Spain, which is in Madrid, and Lithuania is also in Madrid. Yeah, same continent. That makes sense. But anyways, a lot of times they find it their best route to the NBA to come play in the United States. That's what Kasparas did. So it's very clear his goal has always been to be in the NBA, and I've heard him say as much. So he was recruited by Illinois, of course, had a great freshman year, and now he finds himself as a member of the Miami Heat, which is just a perfect fit. Now, it's very rare to see everyone, or almost everyone, agree on a draft pick, but that's been the case so far with Kasparas. Whether it was almost all of the comments on my last video, I asked you guys to grade the draft pick. Everybody said A, except for one person who gave it like a S+++, which is the highest grade I can imagine. But not only my comments, not only Heat fans, of course, all the major publications for the most part, whether it was NBC, CBS, Sports Illustrated, the list goes on and on. I checked a bunch yesterday. Everyone I checked, for the most part, had Miami Heat with an A grade. You can even see how thrilled the Heat front office was when they made this pick. There was a video going around on Twitter that the Heat put out, and then my guy on Twitter, Heat Forum, he actually pointed out that you can hear Adam Simon, their lead scout guy, you can hear him look over to Eric Spoelstra and say, "Now you got a real point guard, a real point guard." Listen closely. Let me know if you can make it out. So everyone agrees that Miami got a steal. That is except for one guy, Kevin O'Connor, who I know had a lot of Heat Nation mad yesterday on Twitter. Of course, he's on Yahoo Sports now, but he was formerly with The Ringer, who was started by that bum Bill Simmons. Y'all know I hate Slick Willie. A couple of Celtics fans, those two. They've hated the Heat for many, many years. Kevin O'Connor even used to write for something called Celtics Blog. You can't trust his opinion when it comes to the Miami Heat. He still wakes up in a cold sweat every night with nightmares of Caleb Martin. So don't listen to Kevin O'Connor. He gave the Heat a D+, but I'm not even going to waste my time reading his excerpt because he's just a hater, right? All you need to know is that he literally had Kasparas as a lottery pick in his most recent big board. So if the Celtics would have got him, he would have been thrilled because you just had him as a lottery pick, but now he's in the Miami Heat and you don't like him all of a sudden? Get the hell out of here, Kevin O'Connor. That guy's an idiot. So if you were reading that, just don't trust his opinion. He's not a legitimate source. Now, in general, draft grades really don't mean anything. Giannis at one point was graded a D. So they don't mean anything. You really never know. But for now, I do think Kasparas Jakucionis is a guy that Heat fans can be excited about, which is nice because there's not a lot to be excited about right now for Heat fans. The one thing that does worry me is the Heat actually didn't get a chance to work him out prior to the draft because, of course, they didn't expect him to fall. The two drafts that people are comparing this to from Miami was back in 2002. I was only 4 years old, so I don't have personal recollections of this. But in 2002, they took Caron Butler, ended up turning into a pretty decent NBA player, was like 3rd in Rookie of the Year. So he was pretty good from the jump, and that worked out for Miami because they were able to end up flipping him just 2 years later for Shaq. So that did work out for the Miami Heat. But then, of course, in 2015, a draft that I do remember very well, that's when the Heat took Justice Winslow because he fell much later than expected. I remember Boston was offering like 4 first-round picks to trade up, either to 9 and take, trade with Charlotte to jump ahead of Miami. Charlotte ended up taking Frank Kaminsky, so they messed up pretty bad. I think Boston might have also offered the same package to the Heat, but of course the Heat declined. They ended up taking Justice Winslow, who I'm not going to talk trash about, right? He's not a bad player. We for the most part, Heat fans like Point Justice. You know, I think we look back on him fondly, specifically Point Justice. Like I said, that's kind of when he was at his best for a couple of months there at least. But we can also acknowledge that maybe wasn't the best pick for the Heat, and they definitely should have taken that Celtics offer for the picks. So you always wonder why a guy falls in the draft. I know Kasparas, his production kind of tailed off the second half of his freshman season. He had a forearm injury too. We don't know the extent of that, but everything that I've heard is, as of now, he's 100%. You know, he's good to go. I think a lot of other teams just had prospects that they were set on, and they might have reached a bit. Of course, that bum-ass Joe Cronin took Hansen Yang at number 16. I actually like Hansen Yang. You know, there's nothing to do with Joe Cronin being an idiot. The only reason he's stupid is because Yang was projected to go like late first round, early second round. He could have traded back again and got Yang later. But obviously Yang was a bit of a reach. Walter Clayton Jr., who of course a lot of Heat fans wanted. I think we dodged a bullet by the Jazz trading up and getting him at number 18. And then the Nets actually took Nolan Traore, who was I think my favorite point guard in the Heat's range. They took him one pick before Miami. So hopefully that doesn't turn into a situation to haunt us. Well, I guess we never would have had a chance at Traore, unlike Maxey, who was taking one pick after us. But hopefully, you know, the Heat got the right guy. It is curious why the Nets passed on Kasparas, because they literally took every other point guard. They drafted the Igor Demon at 9, then took Traore at 19, and then they took Ben Serif later on. Why they would draft so many point guards, I don't know. I guess they're just banking on one of them working out. But the playing time situation for the Nets is certainly going to be interesting there. But point is, a lot of other teams reached. That means that Kasparas was able to fall to Miami, which is just the perfect spot. Really seems like a Heat culture guy. I'm seeing all these highlights of him diving on the floor for loose balls. So far, he's said all the right things.
Yeah, I'm so happy. I think I can fit it pretty well. Just be able to play with Bam in the pick and rolls, try to share the ball, play make, and try to find open shooters like Tyler Hero, you know. So I'm so happy to be there.
He immediately was discussing how he's a perfect fit because of his playmaking. There's another quote that I saw going around where he said, "The playmaking ability, it's what I do." So very clearly, he's an unselfish player. He comes across as humble. And of course, the Heat's biggest need last year was a playmaker to get everybody involved, but especially Bam Adebayo and Khalil Ware out of that pick and roll. I remember last year, Bam was thrilled when they drafted Khalil Ware because I think Bam kind of acknowledges that he'd rather play the 4 in this league. So once they got another big man to play next to him, he was saying, you know, finally I have a guy that could help me out in terms of size. And now I know he'll be thrilled to have a true facilitator. Of course, we remember how much Bam thrived when he played with Dwayne Wade and Goran Dragic. Those guys could throw those pinpoint lob passes, which would really help Bam get a bunch of easy buckets, you know, especially for a guy who has some aggressiveness inconsistencies in terms of looking for his own shot. If he has another guy who could set him up, that's how you'll see him still get these, 20 plus point per game games consistently. Even the Miami Heat tweeted out a picture of that meme of Khalil Ware, like looking happy or surprised. And they captioned it, thinking about the pick and rolls with Kasparas and Khalil/Bam. So it's not a secret. Everybody knows what the Heat needed, and they certainly got that in Kasparas. I did see a new Brady Hawk thread was posted, kind of breaking down some Kasparas highlights, but I think I'm going to save that for another video. So stay tuned. We'll do some film analysis in the coming days here. I didn't want to put any highlights in this video because my video from yesterday got demonetized, just like all my other draft videos. I didn't think that yesterday's would, because instead of putting the highlights on the full screen, I put it on like half the screen. Still got this demonetized, and I went through a lot of work. I cut out some portions, so it's restored as of now. But the point is that the YouTube's copyright claim / fair use policy, the robot they have to pick that stuff up, it doesn't work well. And while I do make these videos for you guys, and just because I enjoy making them, I spend a lot of time in them, and getting compensated is also nice too, but not as nice as getting subscriptions and likes, which y'all could definitely help me out with. I do greatly appreciate it. So make sure to comment, leave your thoughts down below, and hit that subscribe button because I'm on the grind to hit 8,000 subs. That being said, I'll see y'all in tomorrow's video. Peace out, everyone.
Look, pull up in your city, tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.